Hey guys, welcome to another video on my channel, another miniature game from the World Rapid Championship. On the agenda tonight we have a rapid game between Grandmasters Tuan Minh from Vietnam, rated 2598, an extremely strong player, Olympic member of the Vietnam team, and playing with the black pieces we have Yu Yangyi, rated 2724, an extremely strong player from the Chinese Olympic team. In this game, you are going to learn how to prepare a sacrifice on white's king side. We'll learn a couple of new patterns and even see how such a strong player as Le Tuan Minh might fall for this kind of a rapid attack. So if you pay attention, you're going to learn quite a few things in this video today. We'll also take a look at the line called the Ragozin Defence, which nowadays is very popular and is working very well at the highest levels. So let's get into the action. Remember, Vietnam's Grandmaster Le Tuan Minh with the white pieces, Chinese Grandmaster Yu Yangyi with the black pieces. Li starts with d4, and after knight f3, d5, Queen's Gambit, and bishop to b4 is the Ragozin defense. Years ago, no one was playing this defense. It was considered premature to bring the bishop to b4 as in the Nimzo Indian, but having played already d5. But nowadays it's been studied extensively with computers and it's working very well. The other moves here are of course bishop to e7, which is the classical Queen's Gambit, and knight b to d7, which is the Cambridge Springs, and c6, which would just transpose to the semi-Slav. So after bishop b4, white has several moves. The most testing moves are c takes d5 and bishop to d5, and also bishop to d5 straight away. And there are other interesting moves. Queen to a4, as played in the game, is interesting because it checks and hits the bishop, forcing black to play knight to c6. But nowadays it's more or less been established that as long as the bishop can retreat to d6 and black can go for e5, this is more than reasonable. White plays e3, castle, queen to c2. This is mainstream theory, but it isn't the most testing line against the Ragozin. And here white plays a very interesting move. Black plays pawn takes pawn. Normally we won't capture on c4 until white has developed the bishop to win a tempi. But in this case it works okay. Bishop takes, and now very important, bishop to d6. So black is trying to play for e5, and hopefully after e5 he will equalize the game. White plays castle. Black goes for e5, already threatening bishop to g4, which is quite a good move. Of course, at any point, white could capture here, capture again, and just try and finish off his development with h3, bishop d2, rook d1. And the game is balanced, but you can see that black doesn't have any opening problems in this line. Rook e8, bishop to e6, c6, the game is very, very equal. However, white doesn't want to play like this yet and goes for h3, just stopping bishop to g4 and also stopping any shenanigans with pawn takes pawn, knight takes pawn, knight takes knight, and some sacrifices on h2 followed by knight to g4. They shouldn't work normally, but you never know. h3 is okay. Black plays bishop to d7, just developing, and white plays a3. Maybe a3 is slightly slow and bishop to d2 should be preferred, but it still isn't a mistake. And now black plays pawn takes pawn. And here white is going to end up with an isolated pawn. One of the reasons he played a3 is because in some lines after bishop to d5 and rook to d1, the white bishop drops back to a2 and b1, setting up a battery for the mate. But this is a bit in the distance, far in the distance, so it's unclear to me that exactly this position with the d4 pawn isolated is good for white. Computer says it's equal, so let's go with that. Now, black played here queen to c8. Already you can see that black has lined up the queen behind the bishop and he wants to sacrifice on h3. Basically, when you're going to be hit by a sacrifice on h3, you have to make sure you have at least the more or less same number of pieces defending your castle king, and therefore the sacrifice normally doesn't work. In this case, black will be attacking with the queen, the bishop and the knight, possibly with the other knight. That's between 3 and 4 pieces. And white will be defending with the rook and the bishop, the rook and the knight only. So really, white should be bringing another piece to the defense. That's why he plays rook to e1. I think his idea is to drop back with the bishop. But this move doesn't seem to work. So I would probably suggest to play here knight to e4. And after the exchange of knights, the queen comes to the defense. Now we have 3 pieces on the king side. And also we've eliminated one of black's defenders. Now I don't think that black would sacrifice the bishop now. I think he would have played rook e8, and the game continues with a more or less balanced position. So rook to e1 is already a mistake. Black correctly sacks the bishop, attacking the knight. Of course, the knight can't move because there's going to be a very swift checkmate in the area. For example, here we could probably checkmate with the check first, and then as everything is protected, my suggestion would be to play rook e8 here. I think this is working. Well, rook e8, I'm not quite sure because there might be bishop to f7. Okay, but now we could just play knight takes d4. We control the square, and white is getting mated here. So we can't move the knight. A bishop to f1 loses to queen takes f3. So when white played rook to e1, he must have calculated here the move queen to d1, which is the move he played. We drop back with the queen, we protect the knight, and we threaten bishop to f1 and bishop to d2, winning. But now, of course, black plays knight to g4. And now, bishop to f1, which would be the defense, loses because of bishop to h2 check, king to h1, and knight to f2 mate. So the tactics are working for white. Now, Le Tuan Minh is 2600. I really can't believe he didn't consider knight to g4. I'm sure he did. And he probably thought that his move knight to e4 would protect everything. Now f2 is protected. The bishop is attacked. Life is good, he probably thought. But he was in for a surprise. The only move to defend his position here would have been to play bishop to e3, protecting the f2 pawn, but with the bishop. And this will allow for the following line. Bishop to h2, capture, check, check, capture, and rook a d8. And here I think that black has enough compensation for the sacrifice piece. He has 2 pawns plus a wandering king in the middle of the board. Computer gives a very small advantage for black, which means he has enough compensation. But the game is still alive. There's no forced mate. Anything can still happen here. But black is okay. Black is doing well. Instead of that, unexpectedly I would say, the Vietnam Grandmaster played knight to e4. And here he was hit with a combination, which you would do well to remember. Check. And now, normally this doesn't work, because to mate on h2, you need to be able to play queen to h2 and queen to f2. But king g1, here is another pattern that is good to remember. Maybe a new pattern for some of you. Bishop takes f2, knight takes f2, and queen to g3 check. This is a new pattern for many of you. So now if king f1, queen takes f2 is mate, and if king h1, knight takes f2 is mate. And this wouldn't have happened if white had played bishop to e3 instead of knight to e4. So in this game we've had a look at the Ragozin defense, a good defense to have in your repertoire. We've taken a look at this kingside attack on the king side with the sacrifice, a couple of new interesting tactical patterns, and we've had a chance to meet Mr. Le Tuan Minh, 2600 from Vietnam, and Yu Yangyi from China. Both of them extraordinarily good players. But as I always say in these videos, anyone can fall from a miniature, especially in a rapid game, even the highest level players. I hope you enjoyed. Leave your comment below. Tell me where you're from. I still really want to know where my audience is signing in from. And if you haven't subscribed, please click on the subscription button. It's totally free, and that would allow us to grow the channel and get our goals, which for the moment is arriving at 1,000 subscribers. And see you soon. Have fun. Enjoy the games.